The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. St. Augustine. St. Augustine was a very interesting man because he said things that everyone knew, but never really put into words. But he said other things that made people take a step back that were just as true. But because they hadn't thought about it in those terms, they couldn't come to grips with it. In today's video, I'm going to share an excerpt from a man named Tucker Carlson, the guy that got fired from Fox, and show something, a window and an insight into the mindset of those in the mainstream media who believed they were telling you the truth, whether it was about Dominion, whether it was about the election, or about Trump, or DeSantis, or whoever. When you have someone who has it in their mind that there is only one version of the truth, they're going to get caught. See, no one has to convince any other animal in the forest that the lion is, generally speaking, the king of the jungle. With very few exceptions, it can go eat just about whatever it wants. Now, St. Augustine also: suppress prostitution and capricious lusts will overthrow society. Now, some might say time has given this proof, but it would seem like a very odd thing for a man like this to say. You would think that, of course, he would want to suppress it as much as possible, given his opinion that it was a very seedy, seamy, ugly part of society. Now, I'm going to read the entire quote from him that includes this, and it will show a much greater truth that I think this country is facing right now. It's something that I think is going to be applicable, to all of our situations going forward. Real quick, 24 hours away, new video talking a lot about this, but also talking about the realities of what's going to happen when things really do get out of hand financially. They're talking about First Republic Bank this weekend going into receivership, what that might cause, the raising of the debt ceiling. Southern Prepper 1 has 2 amazing videos in the last 2 days. I've talked about him before, where he talks about the collapse of the dollar and what would you do, in the sense of how would you adapt to this, and would you be one of those types. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here. He didn't say this, but it's kind of the idea of, would you go back to Egypt, so to speak? Those of you who are familiar with the story of the Exodus, those who complained after being released, saying it would have been better had we stayed in Egypt. Basically saying the idea is, would you want to go back? Now, here's the entire context of what St. Augustine was saying. What more hideous than a hangman? What more cruel and ferocious than his character? Yet he holds a necessary post in the very midst of laws, and he is incorporated into the order of a well-regulated state. Himself criminal in character, he is nevertheless, by others' arrangement, the penalty of evildoers. What can be mentioned more sordid, more bereft of decency, or more full of turpitude than prostitutes, procurers, and other pests of that sort? Remove prostitutes from human affairs, however, and you will unsettle everything because of lusts. Place them in the positions of matrons, and you will dishonor these latter by disgrace and ignominy. The class of people is therefore by its own mode of life most unchaste in its morals. By the law of order, it is most vile in social condition. And the final point he makes about this: and is it not true that in the bodies of animals, all of us, meaning there are certain members which you could not bear to look at if you should view them by themselves alone, but the order of nature has designed, because they are needful, they shall not be lacking, and because they are uncomely, they shall not be prominent. And these ugly members, by keeping their proper places, have provided a better position for the more comely ones. Basically, what's being said is there are things in society that are necessary evils. It is just the state of being. Now, what did Tucker Carlson say? What did he say that will give us the huge insight into the blindness of those who thought they knew the truth? I'm going to play it. It's only a couple of minutes long, and let him tell you in his own words.
One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope.
How many of you caught it? Sorry about that delay. How many of you caught what he thinks hope is? Now, what did he say that was so patently ridiculous? He believes that our regression into a one-party rule system where speech is suppressed and truth is what the leaders say it is, he thinks that is a situation that is too ridiculous to continue and absurd. He said, the truth will prevail, but as far as people go speaking the truth, I wonder if Mr. Carlson has read history. How many of you know who this is? It's Pope Innocent III, by far the most powerful pope to ever have been seated. Even the rulers, the kings and rulers of Europe feared this guy, of Europe's countries, feared this guy. We've talked about Pharaoh at length, and there's something, probably my fault, I haven't alluded about Pharaoh that makes him so much different than so many other powerful rulers. Pharaoh did not say, I am God's agent on earth. Pharaoh was God. For all intents and purposes, he was the morning and evening star. That means as it proceeded out of his mouth, that was the only truth that was to be believed. See, he didn't say, I represent the gods or the gods have chosen me. Pharaoh was God. Period. He was a god. Now, the patently absurd and ridiculous thing is this. The last 200 and something years, the idea of liberty and democracy and all this stuff where you have huge swaths, groups of people that came to the New World, Dutch, French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Irish, all of them, and we're just going to all live together in perfect harmony based on freedom. That is the patently ridiculous part. Just ask Caesar, who tried to do this. Another one party rule. Some have argued that, the Roman Empire, by far the most powerful of its day, even the Egyptians were brought to heel by the Romans, but they couldn't hold it together. And they had a Senate. Even Julius Caesar himself was stabbed to death by his own friends. So, even as powerful as this man was, it didn't last. And don't get me started. This is probably the least taught and most important time in history. Ferdinand and Isabel of Spain. At one time, the Spanish Empire controlled, I want to get this right, almost half the known world and 3/4 of its wealth. Not for 10 years, not for 20 years, hundreds of years. They were the beginning and ending. It was a monarchy. So for Tucker Carlson to say that it's the time that we're in right now, returning back to single party rule, is the absurd time, is bizarre. It's been the case for most of history. Even Pontius Pilate looked at Jesus straight in the eye and said, "What is truth? What is truth?" And summarily put him to death. If this map doesn't illustrate it for you about Spain, every single arrow you see is a different, not explorer from Europe, different Spanish explorer that came. And everything south of this line was known as the Viceroyalty of New Spain. Everything from Charleston all the way halfway through the Southlands, across Texas, dang near up to Colorado, all the way to basically Mount Shasta and south. Do you know how many million square miles this is? It was the Viceroyalty of New Spain. This was the way up here in the corner. This is the colony of Virginia. This is what we've been taught freedom and liberty and all this kind of stuff is all about. Colony of Virginia. It's bizarre. With all of the different influences and efforts that were made in the New World from, we allegedly won, quote unquote, won the war 1776. It was 1789 before anybody could ever get on the same sheet of music with a constitution. And even then, it was 13 colonies with completely differing ideas from South Carolina to Massachusetts about what the right direction forward was. That there was any idea of there was unity at this point is ridiculous. And hence, what did we see in 1860? The proof of that. It was 1789 to 1860 before this all fell apart. So what is that? What is 1789 to 1860? 70 years, one generation. It lasted, the Constitution lasted one generation before it devolved into full-blown, bloody, aggressive war, one group trying to take away power from the other group. And that's not my opinion. And even then, fast forward. I've used this before we talk about Venezuela. How many of you would say it's patriotic to pay willingly our share of taxes, to buy and hold war bonds? Pay willingly our share of taxes? You see, this predates the IRS. You see, here now in this country, at this moment in time, there is no patriotism involved in taxes. Biden's IRS chief hiring 1,200 more gun-carrying agents on top of the already, what do they have here? 4,600 gun stockpile, 3,282 pistols, 621 shotguns, 539 rifles, 15 fully automatic firearms. I don't know why they're they're saying revolvers aren't pistols, but whatever. Pistol and revolver rounds, 3,151,500. Rifle rounds, 1,472,000. 50 shotgun rounds, 367,750. Fully automatic firearm rounds, 56,000. But it's patriotic to willingly pay your share of taxes. This was your great-grandparents or grandparents, possibly. the generation that fought World War II. That's what this is from. But I don't want to forget this. Southern Prepper 1. Go to Southern Prepper 1's channel. I'm not going to play these because he's monetized, and I want everybody to go there, and I want them to click on his videos so he gets as many views. He did a video yesterday. Says, I will be glad when the dollar collapses. We can take back control locally, hopefully, peacefully. And then today he answers somebody who took him to task for saying that. And he asks, would you give up your financial security to get back to constitutional government and lawful money? So it's a very interesting thought-based conversation. But it boils down to this. And every single time I hear this, I'm going to go right back to the well and talk about something people don't want to talk about when things get really that bad. When you see couples having to make decisions and someone having to kiss somebody goodnight and check on the kids and then go out and work to make up the extra difference when the dollar collapses. Maybe having to dig through bakery dumpsters to bring something home for breakfast. And here's my final question regarding St. Augustine. You see, St. Augustine also said, if you believe what you like in the Gospels and reject what you don't like, it's not the Gospels you believe, it's yourself. So I'm going to ask you, which is worse? Which is worse? Someone doing what's necessary to feed their kids? Or this? I mean, I know people are like, that's apples and oranges comparison. It's absolutely not. Because if America could be a meme, this would be it. This is how the world sees America. That we've gotten so big that literally our largesse is the table for more of our largesse. That we can't even move ourselves to go get things that are horrible for us. We now have to have horrible things brought to us. But people get their nose bent out of shape about this. So, anyway, my point is I don't think we're going to need anyone out there in the media or whatever harping on opinions of truth. Because the truth will defend itself. When things get rough, when things get bad, all of this social argument about what men are, what women are, all that's going to go away. When we get reduced back down to survival, you watch. Having to buy all these hormones and makeup and dresses for these guys that think they're women. You see, when you take the money away, what happens when you take the booze away? What happens when you take away the ability to get on the internet and make yourselves a spectacle? Day after day after day. And even if you do have the ability to get on, nobody's tuning in because nobody has time anymore. Because everybody's working 2 jobs and nobody cares. And you're no longer the center of attention. You see, that's the truth. That's the lion. Eventually, all this social nonsense is going to go away because it's superfluous and ridiculous. And the truth is going to come out. And the truth is its own true one-party rule. And one final comment about Pharaoh. Even the caliphates that rule in the Middle East today do not make the allegation that they are gods. Many of them don't even make the allegation that they are God's representatives. That they are just simply following the teachings of a certain prophet that they happen to believe in. In Egypt, for thousands of years, Pharaoh was little g, O-D, God. Period. Now, he would have said capital G, but we all know who true Almighty God is, don't we? And he ruled, and they ruled, Pharaoh after Ramses and Ramses II and Ptolemy, and you go right down the list, as God. For thousands of years, Caesar ruled. The king and queen of Spain, the king and queen of England, the king and queen of France. That was the rule. What we're doing is the absurd. This was the absurd. And now it's coming to fruition. This Republicans and Democrats and everybody's the same and all this other nonsense. It's just ridiculous. So I will leave it there. Hope everyone had a wonderful week. Like I said, 24 hours-ish. We're going to have a brand new video up. Trust me, you're going to want to see it. It's only $1 per month, not per video, per month. It means once you pay your $1, you have access and you can go back and watch all the videos that we've ever put up going back 3, 4, 5 years. And just every month, it's just $1 for that access. It's even less if you sign up for an entire year, fully refundable first 90 days. Would absolutely love to have you there. God bless. Have a great rest of your week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.